Hi everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. I just showed you the 5 gel prints that I'm going to be using to make this layout. I used Shimmerz color splash sprays and my gel plate to make all of those prints and several more. And I have another video in which I show you how I do that, and I will link that video in the description box. So here I take one of those prints, some modeling paste and a Tim Holtz stencil called Dot Fade, and I add some texture to that gel print. Unfortunately, my camera was slipping out of the stand that holds it, so I couldn't show you the whole thing, but I took the gel print and I added a whole bunch of texture using that stencil, and I'll show you that again in a little while. I'm also using a cut file from the Shimmerz website. I absolutely love the rays of the sun on this cut file, and I like the clouds below as well. And I've made the gel prints to go along with this cut file, and I'm going to use those gel prints to back it. I knew I was going to use the light blue paper I added the modeling paste to a few moments ago for the clouds. So I thought that if I made the areas between the clouds a darker blue, that would help the clouds to stand out a little bit. Now that I have the parts of the cut file that seem to me like they're the sky backed with the darker blue paper, I could use a big chunk of that light blue paper and back all the clouds at once. So right now I'm tracing with my pen around that area right onto that light blue gel print, and then I'm going to cut it out and I'll have all of the clouds backed. I'm going to have about half a sheet of this light blue gel printed paper left over, and I like to save those pieces to use on other layouts. Here I'm using the gel print to back a cut file, but I find a lot of uses for these gel prints. Sometimes I'll use them to mount something on or to mat a photo on. Sometimes I will use dies and punches to cut shapes out of them. So whenever I have excess, I put it into a particular envelope and I save them for future layouts. Something that I found that's nice about gel prints that I make with the Shimmerz color splash sprays is that there's a little bit of a shimmer to them, unlike when I make them just using regular acrylic paint. And I like that, and it's particularly perfect for this layout that has the sun on it. And you can see that shimmer in the rays of the sun that I'm going to start working on in a little while. I hope you'll be able to see that on the video. So I'm adding a whole lot of gel glue to the cut file so that I could attach that larger piece of light blue paper down, and I love the way I was able to back everything at once. For the rays of the sun, though, I'm going to cut those out one at a time using 3 different colors. One is yellow, one is a lighter peach color, and the other one is a darker, almost salmon color. And I use these 3 different colors of paper, and I alternate between the 3 different colors, going all the way around until I have completed backing the part of the cut file that's the sun. Once I have all of the rays of the sun backed on this cut file, I'm going to complete backing it by putting a photo in the center. It's going to be a photo that my daughter took in the Dominican Republic, and the photos she took are just amazing. It must be absolutely gorgeous there. I feel like I'm not alone in loving to scrapbook summer or tropical themed photos. It's just one of my favorite things. I also like a few other subjects too, but this is something that I'm always motivated to scrapbook. So I cut my photo back a little bit, and then I use some glue to glue it down. And now I'm tracing around the outside of the cut file, and I'm going to cut out a circle and then glue it behind the cut file. I could have used the silhouette cameo, but I decided that this would just be a little bit quicker. I glue this down to the back of the cut file so that when I stitch on the cut file, which is something that I absolutely love to do, this makes it a little bit more sturdy and the stitches won't rip through or pull through the paper when I have this second added layer. And I wait for that layer to dry before I do any piercing or any stitching. In order to make the holes for the stitching in my layouts, I use this Amy Tangerine set. It's a small piercing tool and a mat. The mat has seen better days because I use it so often, but that piercing tool is holding up just fine. However, you really don't have to have this tool. You can use anything that has a sharp edge, like a thumbtack or a needle. Any of those things will work. And I try to keep the distance between the holes consistent. I do my best. Even if it's not perfect, it's not super noticeable, I don't think. Here you could see that I've done a lot of stitching. I added some stitching around the clouds. I put the stitching on the inside of just some of the clouds. I thought it would be a little bit more interesting if some of the clouds had the stitching and some didn't, just because there were so many clouds. I didn't want everything to be the same. And then I made some very large stitches in the sunburst part of the cut file. I sewed 3 very large stitches on every other ray of the sunburst. I thought that this would mix up the stitching a little bit. Instead of just having the back stitch like I do on the bottom, I have something a little bit different on the top, and I think that those long stitches really lend themselves to the sunburst pattern. And I match the thread to the color of the paper. In the parts of the sunburst section of the cut file that do not have the stitching, I'm adding some sequins. I use glossy accents to attach them down. I used some regular yellow sequins. You can see them in a big bag off to the right. And then I also used some Spiegelmom scraps mixes. I have been cleaning out my craft room for the past 2 months, and I came across these chipboard letters, and I was kind of thinking that I should get rid of some of these chipboard letters. I haven't used them in a long time, but as I was making this layout, I was thinking that these letters were a great size for this particular layout, although they weren't quite the right color. So here I'm using some Liquitex gesso, and I'm gessoing over the chipboard letters so that I can make them the color that I want to, that will match with my layout. I put 2 coats of gesso on the letters just to make sure that I had the original color covered up. And then I let the gesso dry for a little while before adding any sprays. To make these letters the colors that will go with the layout, I decided that I was going to use some color splash sprays in a couple of different colors. I started with Once Upon a Lime, that's the green color, and then I added a little bit of Sea Breeze, and then finally some Swoon in the Lagoon. And I mixed those colors together to make a pretty greenish blue color. Right now I don't have this color on the layout, but I'm going to be adding it to the background. So I used my heat tool to dry the paint, and now I'm adding another layer of the color splash sprays. I decided not to get rid of most of those chipboard letters. I'm going to try to keep them handy, because sometimes I think it's not that I don't use things because they're old, it's because I have them packed away and I forget about them. Now I'm going to create a background for the cut file. I'm using my 12-inch by 14-inch gel plate and the same colors of color splash that I used to make the letters a different color. I'm using a small brayer and I'm spreading out the color. I thought that I would try to create a little bit of texture by using this, I guess it's almost like a stamp. It didn't end up really making a big impression, but I always like to try different things out with the gel plate. So I like the color, I like the direction this is going in, but I wanted the color to be spread a little bit more evenly on the background. So I decided that I would add some more layers. So with each layer, I add the color splash sprays to the gel plate. I use my brayer, I spread them out. Then I place the same print that I made before on the gel plate, and I continue to pull prints until I feel that the color is the way that I want it. And I find that you could do a lot of cool things by slowly building up the color for gel prints. So now I'm going for yet another layer. You could see that I'm again using those same 3 colors, spreading them out. And this time I didn't spread the paint over the whole gel plate. I know that the majority of area that's going to be seen is along the edges, so I thought I would try just dipping the edges of the paper in the paint, and I thought that that worked out really well. Now I'm going to add another element to my page. I'm using some very inexpensive, rather thin white acrylic paint that I got at the craft store, and a stencil that I cut out on my Silhouette Cameo using a Paige Evans cut file. I added the stencil to the gel plate. I used the brayer to roll over it, and now I'm pressing my print into the white paint. Then I once again put my gel print onto the gel plate. I pulled the print, and now I'm adding once again a very thin layer of that inexpensive white acrylic paint to the gel plate. I place my print onto the gel plate. Once again, there's lots and lots of layers on here. I once again pull the print, and I'm thinking this is almost done, but I wanted to add just a little bit more to it. So here I use the white paint that's left on the gel plate, and I press my paper down into that. And now I'm once again adding some of the white paint just to the bottom of the gel plate, because I am just going to add the white paint along the edges of the print. And now the print is finally done, and I'm going to add a whole lot of splatters to it. I add the Color Splash spray in Sea Breeze first. I am concentrating the splatters along the edges of the paper, of course, because that's what's going to be visible. Then I added some yellow splatters using Color Splash Squeeze the Day. I didn't use this color so far on the background, but I wanted to tie the cut file together to the background, so I thought adding some yellow splatters would help to do that. Then I mixed Squeeze the Day with Flashy Flamingo. This creates a peach color that is the same as the color that is already on the cut file. I added lots of those splatters, and then I also added some white splatters to the background. And the white paint takes a little while to dry, so I set the background aside and let it dry very well. Now I'm adding some adhesive to the back of the cut file, which is a little challenging with all the thread that's there, but I do manage to get enough adhesive on there to attach the cut file down to the background. I position the cut file on the background and press it down. Now I'm going to bring those letters in, and I like the way the color of the letters is similar to the color that's in the background, just to kind of tie everything on the layout together. I used ATG to attach the letters down. I started with the middle letters, and then I worked my way out from there. There's a lot going on this layout. There's sequins, there's stitching, there are a lot of different colors, and then I have the background with the splatters. But I still felt like I had to add some type of embellishment. I found that I had these flamingos in my stash that were a little bit more on the peachy side than on the pink side, especially the flamingo that's on the right. So I decided that I would include some flamingos on either side of the photo. I wanted the flamingos to face the photo, so I had to use one of the flamingos that was a little bit lighter on the left-hand side, but its legs were also that salmon color, so I thought that it still matched in with the colors on the layout. I also found these starfish. These were taken off of some clips that I got at Dollar Tree, and I thought that that light blue color went along nicely with the light blue color in the clouds. I placed a self-adhesive pearl in the centers of both of the starfish to add a little bit of detail. I decided to switch out the flamingo on the right for a set of 2 flamingos that was on this Recollections sticker sheet. And then I added some shells and starfish stickers next to the blue starfish. Now this layout is complete, and here are some close-ups. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it and found it useful. When you place an order with Shimmerz Paints, please mention my name in the comments and you'll receive a free gift. In the description box, I'll link the page to the Shimmerz website that has more information about these Color Splash sprays. I really think that they're great for these tropical layouts because the colors are so bright and beautiful. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you again for watching. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.